thank you so much for coming on the show. It was great finally meeting you because it's how we meet each other in person is through Zoom, right?
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization and what you're passionate about?
Awesome. I appreciate it. Thanks for the time today. So my name is Jay Arcement. I'm a senior product manager for innovation and integrations for our retail product org. And so I do quite a few different things at this point. I think as is the world, when you sort of get good in a niche, they give you more and more things. So number one, I lead innovation for our retail group. So we're thinking about obviously how checkout is done in the future. So right now we're obviously very barcode focused and moving forward. Could be vision, it could be RFID, it could be a variety of different sensors. And so we're really thinking of the sensors agnostically, but how do we continue to be a dominant player in the checkout experience, moving forward.
Hmm.
Um, Also working a lot around in-store analytics, again with computer vision, thinking about how people move through the store. Online analytics has always had a leg up. You can tell where people click and how long they spend on looking at each item of clothing. Inside the store, we have a little more. It's a little more difficult. We usually only know if someone made the purchase. So with computer vision, we're able to learn a little more from that. I'm also working in our product storytelling group. So how do we better position our both new and existing products to our customers? And so thinking through technical storytelling. And then finally, I work with our M&A group, sort of the first line of defense for new ideas and new startups coming in that want to be a part of the NCR platform and ecosystem, and then have been involved in a couple of our acquisitions. Specifically, we acquired an e-commerce company, FreshUp, and then also a crypto ATM company, Liberty X. So it was
Ooh, crypto. I love it.
yeah, I was fortunate to work on those and yeah, be a part of the bruises and the successes of crypto.
Nice, nice. So, I mean, retail has changed so much, and it's not just the pandemic. Just prior to that, it's just become it's super challenging. So, I mean, where do you see? I mean, where do you see the areas that I mean, I totally understand the seeing the technology about trying to get that same level of analytics in store as you have online. But I mean, what other challenges are you guys facing in that space?
Yeah, so and we and our customers, the retailers, are facing the same challenges, and we're trying to arm our retailers with better tools. Customer expectations have just increased so much, and I
Hmm.
think we're all a part of the problem. I think it's a good problem, which is when I go in a store, I want to have as low friction as possible. I want to make sure that I find what I'm looking for. I don't wait in line. I don't have to deal with any extraneous any barriers to having that either quick experience, and that's another thing that we're thinking about is everyone's experience is a little different. Like we have to
Hmm.
cater to the 72-year-old person who may want to sit and talk with the associate. That might be a valuable interaction that they want to have at that day. And Gen Zer who literally wants to get in and get out, if they talk to no one, that's too many people.
Yeah.
um,
I know those days. Sometimes I feel like the older one, and then sometimes I feel like the younger one. It depends on the day.
Well, and you bring up a good point. The
Yeah.
personas, they're different personas, but every person has a different use case. Just
Yeah.
today, I went to the dry cleaner. Most days, I'll say hi, I'll chat a little. Today, I was in a rush. I had a meeting.
Hmm.
Literally was just threw down my clothes, yelled out my number, and ran. So we have different, we have different things that we're looking for depending on how our day's going.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. So do you see that there's going to be a resurgence of in-person retail? I mean, do you think that's coming back again?
Yeah, anecdotally, I mean, we see it. We see it in the numbers. We see it in the volumes of people going in store. I think everybody was cooped in. We had a little bit of pent up demand. Everybody went back in store. We are also looking at it from a hybrid approach as well. Our the e-commerce company that we purchased is a prime example of that. Of sometimes people want to buy and have that or that delivered to their house, whether it be food or whether it be clothing or groceries. Sometimes they want to go in store. The discovery of new products, the discovery of, maybe I can find a good deal on something, or maybe this jar of pesto really inspires me for cooking something new tonight. And again, different strokes for different folks, and B, it depends on how that person's day and how much time they have an interest in doing that task.
Right,
Um,
right.
yeah, but we're definitely seeing that. We're definitely trying to equip our retailers to create better experiences, no matter how the customer wants to interact and shop.
So I feel that what's happening is a lot of retailers have just become showrooms now. There's a lot of showrooming going on. People would go in and sometimes they would see something. Like I actually did this the other day when I was in a bookstore and I was looking at this book and I'm going, should I buy this book? Should I buy this book? And then I looked online, I found it at the library. And I'm like, okay, that's not good for the retailer, obviously. But I mean, do you see that there's a lot more showrooming going on, and is that going to increase or decrease over time?
Yeah, I mean, I think showrooming has been around for a long time. I think our retailers are, consistently going to have a problem with that. We luckily are more, we have a specialty retail group, and then we have grocery. I mean, grocery Amazon is an option, obviously,
Hmm.
but the ability to get that item right now and to get it for whatever that you're cooking, I think the two things that retailers have going for them is, one, immediacy. It's even quicker than 2 days. It's even quicker than 2 hours. It's right now. And then also having unique products. And I think that's one thing that we've especially seen from the pandemic, of the stores that were selling the same stuff that you could buy online are struggling. The stores
Right.
that have something unique and have an experience that's unique are doing a lot better and have
Right. So it's
stronger.
retail's becoming more of an experiential uh play, right? In-person retail.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we're gearing up for. How do we, enable that experience to be the best experience, both during the shopping, the digital twin experience? How do we make it so that I would never go buy it online because I enjoy the process so much, or the process is so quick, or, whatever it may be that we're trying to optimize for our retailers.
Well, in a lot of cases, it's entertainment, right? I mean, you're actually
Yeah.
spending time enjoying yourself, shopping, window shopping, regular shopping. Shopping is a thing, right? I mean,
Yeah, it hits that
people
little
use it.
pleasure button in our brain when we, buy something and then are able to take it home, or even online shopping. When you get that package in the mail 2 weeks later, and you're like, oh, what a great prize I gave to my or surprise I gave to myself 2 weeks
Yeah,
ago.
yeah. It's almost like going to Vegas, but so you were saying you lead the innovation team, is that right, within the organization?
For the retail group, yes.
Right.
So we have we're combining a couple of our different organizations. So we very soon will be retail and hospitality, which we're going to call commerce.
Mm,
And then we have a banking division that's separate as well.
interesting. So, but you're not in the banking division. You're in the more of the retail side of things.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about a time when you were able to, because I'm assuming that you come up with new ideas for products and services all the time. I mean, can you tell us a bit about a time where you sort of invented something internally and were able to actually turn it into a real product or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and a lot of what, I don't know that I'm necessarily coming up with brand new out of the blue
Hmm.
products. That's maybe not my skill set. If it was, I might be in my own startup. But I'm able to sort of take stuff that we've already had and take problems that are even in different industries, and solutions in different industries, and how can we fit them to our industry. And
Hmm.
so I think that's one thing that, being in product, it's really easy to learn from a lot of different groups and a lot of different great innovators, and take those learnings back and be able to create something net new from that.
Hmm.
So some of the analytics stuff I've been working on, we have looked to web analytics. We look to the type of analytics that websites provide, and the type of personas and information and monetization of said data.
Mm.
Everyone says that data is the new oil, and I agree with them, but you have to have a buyer.
Yeah.
And if everyone's driving electric cars, you don't need it. And so we want to get the data, and then we want to have that data be useful, and we want to have a buyer for that data. So I've looked to the online advertising to figure out, well, how do you sell to CPGs? What data do you find? And then how do you most effectively create a marketplace for that? And then so we're using those learnings from online to this in-store data analytics platform.
That's really interesting, and applying technology from online to offline, but you have get the same sets of data. But I'm assuming, like you were saying earlier, through sensors and other technology, you're actually able to get similar data sets.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're, working with computer vision, so we're able to find, heat map. And so one of the cool use cases that I like is I can tell how many people pass that end cap. And then with NCR's transaction data, I can tell you how many people bought it. So now we can do
Mm.
some cool things around product placement. Where do we put the, where is eye level? Where do we put stuff? Where do we put it, in relation to the store? Where do we put it in relation to other items in order to optimize for that marketing mix, and create the most value for our retailers and for the customer to give the best, hey, I don't need to walk 2 laps around the store to find exactly what I want.
So are you finding that it's easy to get these new things through the organization, or you come up with roadblocks saying, oh, we've tried that before, or we've done it, or it's not going to work? Or, I mean, do you find it easier to move things through the organization?
I mean, I think any organization is going to have a few roadblocks. We are very, I very rarely hear, no, we've done that before. I usually hear, even if we have done it before, so what, right? You're coming at it at a different angle. It's 3 years later, the technology's gotten better. So many things have changed that I think, no one really gives that excuse. Like any company, there's going to be, you have to work with different groups. You have to make sure that you get funding approved. You have to make sure that this is a, business imperative, something that's going to help and be a part of our brand. I think especially with data, we want to be very sensitive of the data that we collect and make sure we do it in a very secure way, both for our customers, the retailer, and the consumers. So those are some of the, and I wouldn't call it a roadblock, but it's just a level of additional analysis that those in startup product world maybe don't think about
Right.
as much as larger corporations do. But it really helps because it really adds an extra level of rigor. And then when we come with that final, this is what we want to do, this is the price tag, we have everything pretty well buttoned up, and it's pretty smooth approval after that.
So do you say that there's a sort of, is there another part of the organization that does the more sort of far forward disruptive stuff, or are you all also involved in that?
Yeah, also involved in that as well. When you think about frictionless technology, I would say most of the innovation we're looking is within the 5-year mark. We don't know what we don't know 10 years from now, right?
Yep.
But we know that the technology that's disrupting and knocking at our door, and so that's what we want to develop and think through how we can build our own, build something better, build something that provides the same benefit, maybe using a different technology.
So the technology we were talking about before, where you've got sensors in the stores and you're able to figure out where people are going and walking and around, how prevalent is that out in the world?
That's a great question. We have, let's call it under a dozen stores active that we're working with. It depends on the market as well. Especially with computer vision, you can, there's less protections of privacy in, for example, Latin America. So we've got a couple there, but we do have in EU and the US as well. We just have different standards that we have to take with that. And then, so that's from an analytics perspective. We're also using computer vision from a checkout experience, both frictionless checkout and also vision checkout. So, basically just identifying that item using cameras, and then that's the sort of vision checkout part, and then the frictionless is how to identify that item, and then I tie it to a person in the store and be able to complete their transaction. So again, obviously there's startup players already in the space that and many of them we're working with as well.
Right. So that whole sort of empty store, Amazon Go type experience, that requires sensors and computer vision and like a whole bunch of other technologies, right? I mean, it's not just, because I thought it was just, oh, you have a sensor in the box and you could tell when the person's picked it up and moved it around and put it in their cart and all that stuff. But that's not the case, right? I mean, you have to have computer vision to determine most of that.
It depends, and this is where I think the area is really interesting, and someone like myself, I think it's really fun because it's going to depend on the store. Like RFID is a great solution, right? The problem is a dollar per tag, that's not going to work when you're selling a 60
It's
cent
still that
gravy
expensive?
packet.
I thought it was a lot cheaper now.
It depends, but in grocery, like you have items that are in the cents, and
Mm,
so like the margins just don't work. And thinking about how put all of these tags on, unless you do it from the manufacturer, it ends up being not possible in some cases. Now on our retail, for example, we already have this deployed with some of our clothing brands, because when you're selling something for $20, sure, what's a dollar more, and what's an extra tag that you're already putting tags on the clothing, so that makes a lot of
yeah.
sense. From the computer vision perspective, so Amazon Go uses sensor fusion. They use both cameras and cameras in the ceiling. They use cameras in the shelf, and they use weight sensors.
Mm,
And all of these things together help them be very accurate in figuring out the items. It unfortunately makes them very expensive as well. It also creates a really large compute overhang. So there's other ways of doing it as well. There's purely computer vision based, which does have effect of lower accuracy, but if you have enough cameras and you have the store positioned in a way, then it can make sense.
hmm I mean, and the stores are specifically designed. So those Go stores are specifically designed for that. I mean, it's going to be must be impossible to sort of retrofit an existing retail location with this stuff.
You have players like iFi and Grabango that they will come put cameras in the ceiling. Grabango has rails in the ceiling. So I mean, there's an installation perspective of that. They do not. They've strayed away from the shelf sensors, so that makes it a lot easier, quicker in install. You're not having to go through all the shelves. You've got some server room in the back. So it ends up being a relatively quick retrofit of an
Hmm
existing store. Some of the limiting factors will be size of store, because of course, the more items you have, the more compute that you have. So that ends up being the challenge.
Right, right. So but it's a lot more difficult than a new build where you could just build everything in.
I mean, new build would obviously, yeah, be easier. You could, skip a step, and you could also optimize the store layout
Hmm hmm
for that type of technology.
Cool. So, what would you say that like what kind of new technologies you say contributing? I mean, do you guys have AI in your products now? I mean, do these things think and sense as well as sense, or is it just mostly data collection and analysis?
Yeah, absolutely. They do. So a part of our business is, the physical boxes that we sell, which are the self checkout and the point of sale. Having that self checkout or that point of sale down is incredibly expensive for our retailers. So we're doing a lot with predictive maintenance and sort of
Hmm
understanding when that device is going to go down, so that we can send a service professional earlier, or we can remotely do whatever that service is or whatever that reset is, so that we don't cause any interruptions for our customers. And that's one thing that I think NCR is especially good at, that you
hmm
perhaps don't get with some of the smaller players, is we know how valuable it is to have your uptime. And we've put in a lot, and this goes with our updates as well, where a lot of companies are doing off-prem, and you'll have an update that can wreck things, and your system's down for hours. We're using edge-based and containerized updates in order to be able to do that and have a running system working while we're able to do the update, so that there's zero downtime for the customers.
Right. Are you guys? I noticed that there's a lot of new players in the space that are sort of like tablet based, and you see small retailers using them. It said, has that dug into a lot of your business? Are you guys coming up with solutions against that, or are you working with them?
Yeah, so has it dug into our business? A little bit. I would say those are usually for a little bit smaller type retailers and restaurants. The customers that we work with, I have these, giant monolithic systems that have tons of customizations that are, it's a big headache for us, but it also makes for a really sticky customer for us. And we're
Right.
able to maintain those. We are moving to a more, dynamic and more easily customizable way to do that. And we are coming up with in hospitality, for example, a more cloud and tablet type solution, both for our existing large retailers and for the smaller retailers and restaurants that we, perhaps haven't been super active with in the past.
So are you actually doing any software layers on top of things where you can say, after somebody's done their checkout or whatever, can actually provide sort of suggestions for other things to buy? I mean, do you have customer profiles and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. With our acquisition of Fresh Shop, so anytime you do any shopping, e-commerce shopping around grocery or build a list, we're able to do dynamic ads based on that list. We're also we're starting to do ads on our self-checkout. So giving, when you're having that checkout experience, either the option for you to grab something close by, or to go ahead and put a coupon in your wallet that you can come back and grab that item the next time that you're around. Obviously, we don't want to slow down the checkout process, so we don't want you to have to go back and go get the thing, but
Right.
we want to give that opportunity. And then as we think about mobile as well, we have a mobile checkout solution. How can you give better recommendations on the fly on what to add to the basket?
So are you ever going to get to the point where I can just sort of check myself out on my mobile? So I could just download an app and go, okay, I'm wandering around the store, I'm picking up this thing, scan, and then just walk out. Are we going to get to that point yet?
Yeah, I
Are
mean,
we
we
there
already
now?
have it. We already have it. Yeah, it's at several places. We had a solution there. It's surprising. And another interesting part of this job is there's technology, and then there's what people are willing to do and willing to use. And most people, like obviously I love using the new tech. I love doing that stuff. But a lot of people, we've had the handheld mobile scanners, we've had scanners on the phone, and for whatever reason, it never just dug in with the customers. And part of that might be a messaging. Part of that might be, how do we better inform and train the customer? I mean, if you look at something like self-checkout, been around for 20 years plus, but it had a lot of resistance before it. I mean, when it first started, a lot of people didn't know how to use it. A lot of people were uneasy with this device. So I think you're finding the same thing with mobile checkout. And frictionless as well. I think getting the device completely out of your hand and just having the computer, the cameras make your basket is the way to go. I was able to test out the Amazon Go store in DC, and it is what it says it is. It's just walk out. And we're developing similar capabilities, both with startup partners and with Amazon, to figure out how we would develop this as well. But I think that's the end goal. And but it is a matter of training. And I think this is another thing where we have a leg up of, when we're thinking about frictionless, we want to actually use our self-checkout device as a good training mechanism for that, of like, hey, you went through the self-checkout, have you tried this? And then next time they can do that self-checkout or that frictionless checkout, and then scan their phone on the self-checkout, and same process. They're using the same device, but instead of having to scan items one by one, it's sort of all calculated for them. So we think there's a hybrid approach and a way to slowly get people to move to this frictionless future. And we also don't want to alienate our customers. We have to create something that the 17-year-old and the 72-year-old can use, and use with cash, and use with credit card, and use with a smartphone, and use without a smartphone. And so, it adds complexity, but it's doable.
Well, that's the thing, right? I mean, those of us in the innovation space are like, okay, we want to do all of this super high-end technology, and then we realize that's not the audience, right? The audience is much broader than just us, and we need to make sure that it's more inclusive, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
And inclusivity. I mean, and like cash, right? Cash versus credit card. We can't just do credit card pay on the phone. That takes out a large swath of people that are great customers, and deserve to be served as well as the ones with credit cards.
Yeah, so it's like, the problem is that you have to continue adding things. Eventually, it's like, okay, now we have to take crypto, and now we have to take this, and you can't get rid of anything because there's still a few people who want to pay cash, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So computer vision is really that good now? where it can actually detect when somebody's picked something up off the shelf and put it back down and all that. I mean, it really is that level of sophistication today.
Yep, absolutely. I tried to steal something at one of the stores. I like put my coat over it so they couldn't see it, and it got it. Because I mean,
Wow.
the interesting thing is it has so many shots on goal, right? Because as long as it can see that, it just needs to see that item at one point while it's at the store, and it knows where you dwell in front of the shelf, and it can read that sort of shelf tag. So it's a lot. It's a lot of compute. And it's not perfect. And I think most of the people in the space, there is a human in the loop, and that's the reason why you don't get instant receipts. You go to one of these things, and for the most part, you'll get a receipt 10 minutes to 3 hours later, because if they
Hmm.
can't quite figure something out, it gets outsourced, and someone will look at that video and try to determine what that item is. So it's definitely not perfect right now. There's still some drawbacks, but from a customer experience, it's great, and we see that. Me and innovation, I see that as a the future in one way or another. Again, probably more of a hybrid approach to start out with.
Right, right. But it's so cool. I haven't been to the one near although I hear that in Asia there are a lot more stores that do this sort of thing. There's whole chains in China that are completely uh just like there's nobody there and you can just walk in and buy stuff and just walk out. I mean, have you experienced any of those at all?
Yeah, so I mean, we've done research on it. I haven't been to one personally, but um, that's a great example of culturally, like so number one, like we have a problem with shrink here in the U.S. So like we're
Mm.
trying to use technology that minimizes shrink. I think there's a little bit less of a problem of that in that side of the world. You also have people who are much more comfortable with technology on that side of the world. So you have people
Hmm.
who are willing to adopt and are willing to perhaps have a uncomfortable or painful onboarding process so that they get themselves set up once and they're ready to go. They're also much more comfortable with, facial recognition and, identity management. So I love the space over there. I've looked at, every time I see a video of a new shopping experience, it's like, oh, I wish we could, get away with that. And we might, we see this, technologies in Asia and Europe, eventually come over here. And
Hmm.
so, and it's both technology and it's a behavioral shift as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I do want to see the day where I can just like walk in and walk out and not have to do anything, just pick up the thing I want and
It's
leave. I mean, I
great.
was thinking about stuff like that years and years ago, and I'm glad to see it's finally actually starting to happen. But of course, it never happens fast enough for me. It's like why don't we do this already? It's got to be a better way.
Yeah, it's great. You don't have to rebag. That's my favorite part. You literally take your bags, you put them in the basket, and you just dump them right in the bags. And there's no back and forth. You can leave the basket, take your bags, put it right in the car.
Nice. I love it. I love it. So you mentioned something earlier, which I thought was interesting. So there's like you were mentioning actually before this. Do you have to get people to sign a waiver as they walk into the store saying, "Oh, we're going to be watching you," and especially in countries in like GDPR type countries,
Mhm.
do you have issues with privacy and collecting data?
So there's do we have issues? Do we think about it? Yes. Do we have to
Yeah.
be very thoughtful in it?
Like, do
Yes.
you have to ask them before they go into the store, "Hey, sign this waiver before you go in because you're going to be surveyed"? No, that's not required yet.
Well, so here's the thing: all of the devices that we use, there's compute on the device, and so if I'm doing any analytics, I'm able to purge all of that. I'm able to do the compute and figure out number of people without actually looking at any of those people, and any of that
Hmm.
PII data I can purge on the device before it ever enters the cloud.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that's how we get around a lot of that. And then a step further, like you would have to get consent, like if you were doing that. On the case of frictionless checkout, it just is associated with a person. And then when that person gets to the quote checkout area, it sort of assigns there. Amazon Go uses their palm thing. So they're using your palm to figure out who you are. Then they track you throughout the store and they use your palm as this is the person to walk out. Those are, of course, you're going to have to opt in. So,
Hmm.
and usually opt in is as long as you're you're doing what you say you're doing with the data for that customer, then it's usually going to be fine. GDPR, California Data Protection Act.
Yeah. So I encountered a retail issue with data the other day. Well, actually, a few weeks ago. It was just before Halloween. No, was it? Yeah, it was actually at the end of September. And I was doing a facilitation session where we were doing discussion on data, and I wanted to have a game which would help people determine the different or understand the differences between structured data and unstructured data. So we were doing this data bingo thing, right? So I needed to get bingo chips, and I went online, couldn't find anything that would deliver it in time. So I went from one party city to another looking for bingo chips, and of course I couldn't find any bingo chips because everything was full of Halloween costumes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, aha, there's the data attacking me, right? It's like I can't find this because the data says this place should be full of Halloween costumes. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's no way around that, right? I mean, we're basically in a situation now where everything's data driven, right? If it wasn't for the data driving it, then we wouldn't know that this is what we'd have to have in the stores. So there's no way to get around that, right? There's just everyone's so data driven now that it makes almost every decision, not just in retail, but almost everywhere.
Yeah, and so you have both the time of the year, and then you have your location. I think you're in California right now. If you were in, you know, South Florida, right, they'd probably have tons of bingo chips, right? And probably
Exactly.
the bingo capital of the United States. So yeah, you're the only person looking for bingo chips in California, probably at the time.
But that's like a problem retail is every business is going to have, because if the data drives the decision making, then you're not going to the niche products are going to be pushed out and then be pushed online. I mean, that's probably what's going to happen. That it's
Yeah.
happened now, right? I mean,
Yep. Yeah, that's what, we think about, either dark or hybrid dark stores where, yeah, you come and you shop for the sort of main items. And then for the packaged goods or those one-off long tail items, we call it endless aisle. So you can literally sort of flip through a screen and
yeah.
find all of the other items that you need, and then have those, shipped to your house at a later time, but get your meats, veggies, whatever that item that you wanted that day. It's a win-win for the store because they have, of course, a smaller footprint with that.
But that's basically happening to all retail, because I realized that I guess I'm kind of a dinosaur. Like I like buying stuff online, but I also like seeing stuff. So, but you go to stores, especially around here, the retail is very sparse, right? I mean, you realize they don't have a lot of stuff in store. Most of it is online. I mean, they're giant, like you said, the endless aisle is not here. So I guess there's really no way to sort of blend that together somehow, is like order it online and pick it up in store or something like that. Because I think the real power of it is the hybrid online offline thing. And I haven't seen too many more stores going in that direction, but do you think that that's where retail should be going?
Yeah, absolutely. I think hybrid, we're already starting to see this in dark stores, dark restaurants, dark kitchens, where how can I provide all of these items to my customer without having them all there? Spaces at a premium, labor's at a premium, like, putting all of it. It's not a matter of just holding that stuff. It's a matter of putting it on the shelf. It's a matter of getting rid of it when it spoils. So being able to better, more dynamically connect those lesser used items with the customer is very important.
But there's really no other way of doing that other than just having it online. You can't just walk into a store and expect it to be there.
I mean, Walmart has a lot of items. That's a good example of they have absolutely everything. Although I think even they have, started to, narrow some of their product and gone on Walmart online. They when you talk about long tail, I mean, you can get anything on Walmart.com. It's amazing with their third parties.
I find that it's amazing what you can get from Home Depot. I mean, I think you can buy milk from the Home Depot website. That's where the retail has become. It's interesting because they can pretty much sell everything, right? So even though it's Home Depot, they can sell milk if they wanted to, right? Because it's basically using the same processes to they probably hooked up with some milk provider if they wanted to sell stuff online. So at that point, retail just becomes a brand, right? So it's
Yeah.
difficult to,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and also you can't have everything because you're putting other items. You potentially could be putting other higher volume items off the shelf. So there's
right,
an interesting article on the $1 trillion brand is the brand that's out of stock. And I think we
right,
especially saw this after the pandemic of, all of the items that weren't there. So the long tail stuff was still on the shelf, but the, toilet paper or the bread flour was gone.
yeah,
So you have to prioritize for that high volume stuff as well.
yeah, absolutely. So can you tell us about a time when you sort of overcame some of the barriers to innovation within your organization?
Yeah, absolutely. I think every time when I bring up something new, it is how will it affect my business and who is the champion that will take it there. A lot of my work is to upper management, but upper management isn't necessarily boots on the ground that would be selling it. So having a product owner or even a salesperson along with me to say, hey, my customers have been asking for this thing, and they've been looking for this solution. I know we can sell it. And so when
Hmm.
I come with my, business model, the best business model and best business case, obviously, people throw crazy numbers at stuff. And I do that as well. If we only got 1% of, this giant market, it's a lot, right?
Well, a lot of times
But
when you're building these business models, you have no idea, right? So
yeah.
you have to just estimate, right?
But the good thing that I have is I can talk to customers. And so I will still give them that, yeah, it's $1 billion market if 1%. But by the way, I have 5 customers that have already raised their hand and said they want this. So when
Hmm.
I take that to management, I can show a clear path to revenue generation. I think that really helps move stuff over the finish line. And it's just a matter of mitigating the other risk, whether it be technical risk, people risk, legal regulatory risk. If we need to bring in a third party or an acquisition, thinking through, making sure we have that buttoned up and already have buy-in from that third party and, wanting, agreeing to work with us. So it's there's no special sauce. It's just doing your homework and presenting everything in a way that's believable and understandable. I think, especially in product innovation, we have to take the complex and make it consumable. My upper management is not going to look through that 50 slide deck with 100 appendix slides. So I've got to think through how
But
I
it's
make it clear.
beautiful.
It's gorgeous. It's all my Deloitte experience put to good work, making a super long, gorgeous, customer ready deck. But we need to really find the so what and what's in it for me,
Yeah,
and put that up front. And then we'll go into the appendix if they have specific questions. But
yeah, yeah. Very cool. Very cool. So it's time to think like a futurist. It's the year 2032. 10 years from now, what do you think your industry is going to be like in 10 years?
absolutely. So that's a great question. I'm really looking forward to no barcode scanners, no self checkout, no point of sale. You walk in, you grab your items, you walk out. So that's the checkout experience.
Hmm. Hmm.
Obviously, there's a lot going in the background there. There's also the digital twin experience. So I think the ability for me to see a product on Instagram, add that to my list, and then be delivered that item and maybe another item suggested to me, is just going to be really seamless and really enjoyable. A 1 + 1 = 3, and
Mm.
not sort of feeding me stuff that I'm not interested in, but stuff that it knows that I will be, and stuff that we've been sold, right? We've all been sold. You go to a
Oh yeah.
restaurant and they say, hey, do you want, you order the appetizer and they're like, hey, did you know that this one, which is more expensive, is better? I say, okay, sure, and sure enough, it is. And I come out of that experience and I say, yeah, did I pay more money? Yes. But did I have a better experience? Also, yes. And so I think
Yeah.
that's where we, as being in retail technology, need to get a lot better as far as making that experience better and worth it, and not just throwing ads at people.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, I love the sound of that sort of retail everywhere where you can just see stuff and then figure out some way to buy it. I mean, how far away is that? You think it's 10 years out or you think we're closer?
I mean, we're already seeing that. I think we're closer. I think as far as this sort of seamless omni-channel experience, that might be a little bit far. And the problem with that is there's so many different pieces, right? Like you need to integrate Instagram, with Apple, with, TJ Maxx, with NCR. Like there's so many different players that you
But
have
TJ Maxx
to.
doesn't have any online presence, really. I mean, you never want to see
Yeah.
what random stuff they have there.
Yeah, true. Bad example, but whatever that retailer may be. Um, so I think that's going to be the hard part in the integration, and it could very well be a startup disruptor that just finds a special sauce on how do I take all of these data inputs and then deliver a seamless and eloquent solution for
Mm.
the consumer.
Yeah, I'd love to see that because retail, it just for me, it seems like a chore. But then again, like you said, I mean, it's different for everybody, and depends on the time of day and how you're feeling and whether you want to
And
sit in
depends on what you're
the.
buying, right? Like if
Yeah,
I'm buying I enjoy grocery shopping. I don't enjoy buying clothes. That's it doesn't interest me. I'm a motorhead. I love buying cars. I'll spend
yeah,
6 months, thinking through the different packages, thinking through what I want to get. Some people hate buying cars. So I think you have to make that experience different for the person, whether if they enjoy it, lengthen it, add more digital experience. If they hate it, make it as short as possible and easy as possible.
yeah. Well, it's how do you know that? How do you know what people want? Is there any way to detect that, like
So
through
there's two
their
things.
actions?
Yeah, I mean, number one would be analytics, right? In my case, like you could, monitor me and see that I've looked up cars for the past 5 months. Be like, okay, this is something that they're interested in. They want some more time. Also explicitly, you can say, hey, do you like this? And we do this of like asking our customers, like, what do you like about this? What do you not like about this? And the specific person, they can say, yeah, I love going in shopping, finding interesting things at the grocery store. So awesome. We're going to give you the trip that you're going to go through the entire grocery store. We're going to give you good recommendations here or there, wherever it may be. And then if we have somebody says, no, I just want to get right out. Okay, here's your list. Here's wayfinding, through the store.
Yeah,
these are the
yeah.
items you need to get. And here's your fast lane checkout, right? Like you've already put in your information. So we know we have all your payment information. You're going to be able to fast lane get out of there. So
Mhm.
in the same store, you can give both of those experiences, I think.
Yeah, and everything in between, which would be
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, I want to see it now. Sometimes I'm tired of shopping. Awesome.
Yep.
Well, this has been great. So, thank you so much for coming on the show. I mean, can you tell us what's the best way to get in touch with you if they need more information?
Awesome. Yeah. So again, my name is Jay Arcement. LinkedIn is a great way. Jay Arcement at ncr.com. And yes, if you work with a startup in the retail space or in the hospitality space, if you work on anything computer vision as it relates to retail, would love to connect and learn more about what you're doing and learn more about how you could connect to our platform. And we have a business service layer platform. So not just computer vision, anything around the transaction. So imagine you're getting all of this really rich transaction data from the retailer. I know, what people are buying, what volume. I know how long the cashier is scanning the item. Think about all this
Nice.
data from retail. If you're a startup that could use any of that data and create something valuable for our customer, we have a platform and a way for you to make money and you to provide that value to our retailers.
Awesome. Awesome. I'll add those links to the show notes. So if anybody wants to get in touch, they can do so. So thank you so much. This has been
Awesome.
great.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Talk to you later. Bye.